Good day and welcome to Business and Finance here on Echo Television International. I am Rachel Tanzi. Now, one of the economic policy that the current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, have made very clear is the unification of the exchange rate in Nigeria. Now, in an attempt to make sure that we have a unified exchange rate in the country, the CBN have seen it fit to float the naira currency as it is now. Now, we might want to understand a little bit what floating a currency means and what we stand to gain as Nigerian economy, and if we can see it in the long run or in the short run, making our currency gain some value, and above all, having a unified exchange rate in the country. Now, a floating exchange rate is a regime where the currency price of a nation is set by the forex market based on supply and demand relative to other currencies. This is in contrast to a fixed exchange rate in which the government entirely or predominantly determines the rate. Floating exchange rate system mean long-term currency price exchange reflect relative economic strength and interest rate differential between countries. Now, short-term moves in a floating exchange rate currency reflect speculation, rumors, disasters, and everyday supply and demand for the currency. If supply outstrips demand, that currency will fall, and if demand outstrips supply, that currency will rise. So by floating, we're looking forward to making sure that the demand for the naira will outstrip the currency, and that's the way we can see that our currency can gain more value. So now floating means that the CBN have put the naira exchange rate on the open market, that it is valued to the dollar. Now, it's no longer determined by the central bank alone, meaning it's no longer determined by the federal government of Nigeria alone, but that is now put out to the market now for investors and exporters to determine how much our naira will be against the dollar based on demand and supply. Now, a currency that is too high or low could affect the nation's economy negatively, affecting trade and the ability to pay debts. The government or central bank will attempt to implement measures to move their currency to a more favorable place. Now, as it is now, our currency against the dollar is still very low. However, with this open market exchange rate determination, we are seeing that there's been more of a fluctuation. The dollar haven't been in a fixed price to the in a fixed exchange rate to the naira for some days now. We will have it at the forex exchange market going low by 2, meaning if the trade was started at 666 naira per dollar, we have it closing down to about 664. Now, these irregularities, meaning that there is demand and supply for the dollar, and therefore it is affecting the value of the naira to the dollar. However, as it stands now, the value of our Nigerian currency has gone low, because we know it very clear that we've had the more out there exchange rate has been the black market, where we know it as Beirut the change against what the CBN has as the exchange rate. Now, with the CBN exchange rate, we've seen that the exchange rate to a dollar, that's naira to a dollar, have never gone beyond 540 naira per dollar. But when it comes to the black market, that's the Beirut the change exchange rate, we've seen the dollar go as high as 700, 800 and above. Now, with the government now keeping it at an open market exchange rate, we are seeing that now the dollar is not at the official price of the CBN, but what marketers want, meaning we are at now generally, and not just with the CBN, but at every bank, every exchange rate now stands for Nigeria as what the market makes it to be or determine. And we've seen that with this alone, we've had more investors making profit, and we're having more inflows of exchange happening in the country. And the aim is to see within the short run, rather the short run or the long run, to see if there is going to be a balance and if the naira is going to gain some significant amount of value as time goes on. Now, the CBN have not sat down and done nothing, because we know that demand and supply is what would determine if this floating is going to be favorable to our economy. Now, the CBN have not sat down to just expect investors and exporters to do this job, but have taken steps to make sure that the demand and supply is high enough for us to be able to benefit from the floating, and we will look into that further. Now, inflation have risen again to 22.44%. It was at 22.22% in May, but as it is now in June, we are seeing it going high to 22.44%. Now, there are many factors, as we can see. Even the exchange rate is a factor as it stands now, but the major factor that have influenced the increase of our inflation as it is now is the fuel subsidy removal. And we have seen that transportation costs have gone really high. Now, this has not indirectly but directly affected the prices of food in the market. And prices of food in the market precisely is the reason why we are having inflation going high to 22.44, and we are looking at it going higher to around percentage of 23%. And we are hoping that with all the steps that the CBN are putting in place for exchange rate, fuel subsidy, now this impact is not going to be something that will earn within a short period of time, as we know that subsidy is gone and it's not coming back. Now, what the government is putting in place to help with the hardship is what we look forward to, and we are hoping that this won't be a long-term thing, that is very soon we will see that the price of fuel will begin to go down, as we know that the federal government are putting things in place to make sure that the fuel pump prices are going low, although it's not going to be quick. But we hope that this won't be a long-term issue, that as soon as the prices of fuel is going low, the transportation cost is also going low, we will see that inflation will be minimal, or it could go down, but at most the best we can ask for is that it stays where it is and it shouldn't keep increasing, because a 23% increase, we're talking about 0.3% increase to the prices of goods in the market, prices of food in the market, and we know that everything is being rounded up in our market. So even if we're just having 50 kobo increase on the 1 naira, 2 naira, we are most likely going to see a 20 naira difference, 50 naira difference, and even 100 naira difference in the prices of, and we are talking about this increase weekly and even monthly, as we can see that the inflation takes place month on month. Now, aside our inflation going high, well, we know fuel subsidy has come to stay, like fuel subsidy removal has come to stay, is not going anywhere. Now, to curb the problem of inflation, or rather to reduce the hardship on civilians, on citizens, the federal government have seen it fit that there should be a 702 billion naira allowance given to civil servants. Now, there's been a lot of arguments concerning this allowance, that it's not only civil servants that will feel the impact of the hardship of fuel subsidy removal in the country. However, the federal government has seen it to start with the civil servant. Now, let's not forget that we have a $800 million palliative that have been given to us by the World Bank. Now, we are keeping our fingers crossed, hoping that the federal government will start the disbursement of these funds. So as the civil servants are having allowances coming directly from the federal government, every other individual, whether you are under the private sector or even if you're a student, you will be able to have palliative or allowances coming from the federal government to help with the hardship of subsidy removal in the country. Now, our debt profile is still going high because the federal government have received another $750 million loan from the World Bank for a power project. Now, the power project, the World Bank Group has approved a loan, yes, and the loan is for the power project with the identification number P174622 was approved on June 9, making it the first World Bank loan approved under the new administration of President Bola Tinubu. Now, it was disclosed that this loan didn't just start this year, 2023. It started since 2022. However, some part of it have been released. Now, what this administration will be having access to is the remaining part of the loan, which will go further into the remaining part of the project for power in the country. Now, even with the loan coming in, we can see that power supply have been a struggle for the country, and we are talking about tariff increasing in the country, and we are soon going to witness over 40% tariff increase by July 1st. Now, this is something, well, scary for households, because as it is now, we've been having increase in the tariff plans for quite a while in the country. We have where 1,000 could give you over 30 units. Now we barely can have 12 units coming from 1,000 naira. Now with a 40% increase, you only can imagine how much unit you will be able to get out of 1,000 naira. It means that the increase in the price, not even the consumption, you might be consuming the same amount of electricity, but then you will be having a higher tariff. Now, let's not forget that it's not only households that are to brace themselves for this tariff increase, as we have reports showing us that when it comes to private manufacturers spend over 100 billion naira on self-generated power. Now, we are talking about companies and industries that cannot rely or depend on power supply of the country. Therefore, they self-generate power to run their businesses. Now, these companies are spending over hundreds of billions of naira monthly, or no, rather in a whole year. These are all countries, companies together spending over 100 billion naira on self-generated power supply. Now, not forgetting the fact that these companies still supply and still depend on power supply from the country for other business within the industry. However, the major thing they do is to self-generate this power. Now, we are looking forward to the government with this power project and loan from the World Bank to be able to give power supply that manufacturers and industries, most especially the private sectors, won't have to spend this much revenue on self-generated power. Now, in line with our foreign exchange floating currency, the federal government have put in place that they've removed rather the limit, the withdrawal limit for domiciliary accounts. Now, what this means is that the transaction rates have gone high to 10,000 US dollar a day. Now, we might want to understand what a domiciliary account is. A domiciliary account is an account that allows you to receive, send, and transfer foreign payment from your local country. You can receive any type of foreign payments on your DOM account. However, sticking to widely accepted currencies like US dollar, the euros, and the Britain pound is advisable, because you can only receive funds based on your bank available currency. Now, how a DOM account works is that for each currency, you must have a separate DOM account. For dollar, you must have a separate dollar account. You must have a separate euros account, and you must have a separate pound sterling account for you to be able to operate these domiciliary accounts. Now, the key thing that the CBN have done is we've seen how for floating to be successful in Nigeria in helping our naira gain more value, we have to have high demand and supply of our naira, and then the currency demands in the country. Now, taking this limit high to 10,000 per day, which before was $1,000. For some account, it was before a long time ago, some years back, just $100, and you can get 1,000 depending on your account, even in a month. And now we are seeing it as high as 10,000 US dollar per day. Now, automatically, this will increase the trade, because there will be more supply and demand for it. People will be able to carry their transaction daily transaction for business people who work with foreign currencies. And even for employees, we are talking about remote workers in Nigeria, won't have the problem of being concerned of how much they can receive into their account and how much transaction they can make by back to foreign individuals or companies. Now, this alone will help with the demand and supply of the currency, and that's what the floating is all about. However, the challenge here is how many Nigerians are trading with foreign currency. We are looking at a population of over 200 million Nigerians, and majority, a higher percentage of these individuals work and earn in local currency. Now, this number might be few, but with a 10,000 US dollar permit for a day in how much transaction you can make, I believe that this can be significant in helping that what the CBN have done when it comes to floating the naira currency, that this will go a long way helping the country be able to get some value for its currency, and that we will be able to have a unified exchange rate, not only a unified exchange rate, but a currency that will help with inflation in the country, a currency that will help grow, a currency that is at a level where we can see that our naira is gaining some value. However, as it stands now, we are still having a currency that is still low, and we know that one of the threats to floating is if the currency value is very low. As it is now, Nigeria, our naira currency is at a low level. Now we are looking forward to see it gain some value with the floating that the CBN has introduced, and also the limitation or the restriction that had been taken off from the domiciliary account. And this is how far we can go on business and finance today. See you next time.